You've done something you're not proud of. Maybe recently, maybe years ago, maybe no one knows. You've carried it quietly, and the world has let you. Now imagine that changes. Imagine that every act of genuine guilt, every transgression your conscience has registered and not released, becomes physically visible to everyone around you. Not as a confession, not as a punishment, just as a fact. Readable, undeniable, permanent. What happens to a world where guilt cannot be hidden? The answer is not what you hope. Here are the parameters. At midnight tonight, every human being develops a visible physical marker, something impossible to hide or fake, that reflects the precise weight of unresolved guilt they carry. The marker is not arbitrary, it is specific, proportional, accurate. A small transgression leaves a small mark. A life-altering betrayal leaves something that cannot be ignored. It responds only to genuine guilt, the guilt your own conscience has registered. Not shame, not embarrassment, not social judgment, only the things you yourself know were wrong. You cannot perform your way out of it. You cannot argue your way out of it. You cannot medicate it. The only thing that removes it is genuine resolution, confession, repair, forgiveness given or received, or the slow, real work of making peace with what you did. Nothing else works, and everyone can see everyone else's. So, what does the world look like the morning after? The first thing that happens is not a wave of confession, it is paralysis. Because the first thing people discover when guilt becomes visible is not their own guilt, it is everyone else's, and it is far heavier than they expected. The colleague you've worked beside for 6 years, the parent you thought you knew completely, the partner who has shared your bed for a decade, all of them carrying something, some of them carrying a great deal. And the specific horror of visible guilt is this: you can see that they carry it, but you cannot see what it is, only the weight, not the content, which means your imagination does the rest. Humans are not built to see the evidence of wrongdoing and resist constructing a narrative around it. So people begin to guess, and guessing without the ability to verify is more corrosive than knowing. Trust, which was always fragile, becomes almost impossible, because now you know that the person across from you is carrying something. You just don't know if it's something that affects you. Within days, power structures completely reorganize, and not in the direction you might hope. The instinct is to assume that visible guilt would dismantle corruption, that politicians, executives, and institutions built on exploitation would be exposed and dismantled. Some of that happens, but something else happens simultaneously. The people with the least visible guilt are not the most ethical people. They are the people most capable of convincing themselves they did nothing wrong. Because the marker responds only to genuine guilt, to the guilt your own conscience has registered, and not everyone's conscience is equally calibrated. The person who exploited others but genuinely believes they were justified carries very little. The person who made one small mistake 20 years ago and has never forgiven themselves carries an enormous weight. Visible guilt does not reveal the worst people, it reveals the most sensitive consciences. And power rapidly migrates toward those with the least guilt, not because they are the most righteous, but because they are the most psychologically armored. Sociopaths, people who genuinely do not experience guilt, become the most powerful people in the world almost overnight, because they carry nothing. And in a world where guilt is visible, carrying nothing looks like virtue. By the end of the first week, a new social economy has emerged. Confession. Because the only reliable way to reduce visible guilt is genuine resolution. And genuine resolution often requires telling someone what you did. Therapists become the most powerful people in society, not because therapy is new, but because therapy is now visibly, measurably effective. You can watch someone's guilt diminish in real time as they do the work of processing it. Churches overflow, not out of faith necessarily, out of desperation. Anonymous confession services appear within days, digital platforms where people can confess to strangers without revealing what the guilt is about, simply to begin the process of release. They are overwhelmed immediately. But here is the dark turn. Confession requires a recipient, and confession, real, specific confession, almost always harms someone. The person who confesses to an affair reduces their own guilt and transfers devastation directly to their partner. The person who confesses to a betrayal of years ago, a betrayal the victim never knew about, forces that victim to carry new pain in exchange for the confessor's relief. The confession economy is deeply, structurally selfish. It prioritizes the relief of the guilty over the peace of the innocent. And it does this at massive scale, simultaneously, across every relationship in the world. The most disturbing aspect of this scenario is not what happens to adults, it is what happens to children. Children develop conscience gradually. The capacity for genuine guilt, the deep moral variety that this marker responds to, develops across childhood and adolescence as the brain matures, which means young children carry almost nothing, and they can see that adults carry a great deal. The effect on child development is difficult to overstate. Children who grow up in this world learn two things simultaneously. First, that the adults around them are carrying burdens they cannot name. Second, that carrying nothing, the way they currently carry nothing, is the safest way to exist. A generation begins to grow up optimizing for guiltlessness, not by living ethically, by developing the psychological capacity to rationalize everything they do. The most successful adaptation to visible guilt is a conscience that doesn't register wrongdoing as wrongdoing. And that adaptation, practiced early enough, consistently enough, reshapes a generation. Not into more ethical people, into people who are very good at not feeling guilty, which is precisely the opposite of what a more just world requires.
Here is what nobody predicted. The people who thrive, not just survive, but genuinely thrive in a world of visible guilt are not the innocent. They are the people who have already done the work. The people who have faced their worst moments honestly, who have made the calls they dreaded, who have sat across from the people they hurt and said the things that needed to be said. These people carry very little, not because they have done very little wrong, but because they have refused to let what they did wrong become a permanent part of what they carry. The thought experiment reveals something profound about guilt itself. We treat guilt as a signal, a feeling that tells us we've done something wrong. But guilt is only useful if you act on it. Guilt that is not acted on does not make you more moral, it just makes you more burdened. The people with the least visible weight are not better people. They are people who either feel nothing, which is its own catastrophe, or people who felt everything and chose to do something about it. The difference between those two groups is invisible from the outside, which is its own kind of horror. So here is the question this leaves us with. We assume that accountability requires visibility, that people behave better when they can be seen, that transparency is the cure for moral failure. But this thought experiment suggests something more uncomfortable. Visible guilt does not produce more ethical behavior, it produces more sophisticated guilt management. People don't stop doing harmful things when guilt becomes visible. They get better at not feeling guilty about them. The conscience, that internal mechanism we treat as the foundation of morality, turns out to be surprisingly plastic. It can be trained, suppressed, rationalized into silence, which raises a question that is genuinely difficult to sit with. If the consequence of making guilt visible is a world that optimizes for feeling less guilt rather than doing less harm, then is guilt actually the moral force we believe it to be? Or is it just the feeling that keeps us up at night? And is the difference between those two things everything? What would you be carrying? And is there something you've been carrying long enough that it's time to put it down? Leave your thoughts below. The ones worth reading are always the honest ones. If this made you uncomfortable in a way that felt useful, that's the point. Subscribe for more. I'm the null hypothesis, and guilt, it turns out, is more complicated than anyone wants to admit.